Welcome, guys, to another episode of the Spring Forward podcast. I'm your host, Spring Richardson-Perry, and today we have a great guest with us, Dr. Carrie Graham. She is an adult learning strategist and training consultant who helps businesses improve employee engagement in learning, information retention, and long-term skills application. And this is really amazing because a lot of times companies put together these training programs, but they don't actually know the best strategies to reach adult learners so that they retain the information. So how she does that is she develops customized learning journeys for both the employee and the client, who's typically the large organization. She collaborates with executives to establish strategies that improve employee training outcomes, that offer immediate solutions and a 50% long-term improvement. So without further ado, let us introduce Miss Carrie. Hello, Dr. Graham.
Hello, Spring. How are you this morning?
I am well. How are you?
I'm well. I'm truly honored to be here, and I am so excited to have this conversation with you that I'm incredibly passionate about, and I hope that your audience is able to take something away from it as well.
Absolutely. So, guys, today we're going to be talking about adult learning. And like Dr. Graham said, she is extremely passionate about this. And this is the work that she does on a daily basis. So, I want to jump right in and get us started. First, Dr. Graham, tell us a little bit about how you got started on this journey, a little bit about you and what inspired you to focus on this.
Yeah, that's such a great question. Thank you for asking. I, like the average working adult, I once was a healthcare provider, let me say that. And as a working adult, I was required to, in order to maintain my board certification, I had to attend required trainings for my job as a healthcare provider. I had to attend trainings. And early in my career, they were great. But the more experience I gained and insights I developed, it felt like the worse the trainings got, and they weren't meeting my needs. I consistently was left with looking at my watch like, okay, that's an hour or 2 hours or a day of my time that I can't get back. And so I, after, after a couple decades of that experience in 2020, I left the industry that I was in and chose to help businesses do a better job. I'm not a subject matter expert in all areas of industry, but in adult learning and workplace learning, I have read, researched, studied, and applied some best recommendations so that people are not looking at their watch. They're motivated and they're excited to go and attend their organization's training because they know they're going to get something out of it. So that's how I started. I really started out of frustration.
And that's a lot of times how these things get started, right? You have a personal experience yourself and you're like, this has got to change. So let me try to fix it. But that's awesome. And so, the good thing about having the personal experience is that you know what you needed, right?
Yeah.
And you know what you didn't like about the process. And so you were able to create something to meet the needs of what people need in training, but also to make it more engaging,
Yes.
make it more fun. Because I'll always see, I used to work in a hospital, but this was way back, probably over 10 years ago. And I used to see some of the trainings happening inside the auditorium, and it just used to look so boring. Like, and I just used to be like, what are they learning? It doesn't look like this is any fun. It doesn't look like anybody's retaining any sort of information. So I'm glad that you came with this, that you're offering some solutions that actually work.
Yeah.
Um, But so the educator in me is thinking about learning. We have all these ways to reach kids where they are, but we just expect at some point that adults, whatever we throw at them, they're just supposed to be able to catch it because they're adults.
Right.
So talk to us about what adult learning is, because I don't think people actually know.
Yeah. So, Spring, that's such a great question. And one of the major differences between children and adults is when you think about a child doesn't have any prior experience with anything, right? With math, language, whatever the case may be. Whereas adults, we do. We have had experiences and we've been able to learn lessons from them. We have had positive experiences, we've had negative experiences. We also have the skill of critical thinking in our judgment. And so that impacts all of our life experiences, actually impact how we approach a new learning experience. And I call it the learning table, right? So if we know the difference from right or wrong, but when we come to a new experience, we're judging it, we're gauging it based on our prior experiences. And here's a great example. It's actually not great, but it's an example that illustrates this point. When I was at one organization, I was a state employee, and we were all required to attend a such sexual harassment training. Now, this is a incredibly large organization with thousands of employees. And in this one training session that I went to, there were about 200 people that were in attendance required. The organization clearly invested a lot of money in the training, sexual harassment. And as I'm sitting there, I'm looking around at the people seated around me. There were people playing games on their phones. There were people chatting, having personal conversations, and there were even individuals who were sleeping. This is during a mandatory sexual harassment training. However, at the same time as this training series was going on, that institution was involved in a very public sexual harassment court case. Very public. That is what flipped the switch for me. And that's also an illustration as to people come to trainings with their past experiences, good or bad. Some of those individuals probably came to the training with, oh, this is just going to be another check, something I just need to sit through and be present for, and then I can get the bonus or whatever the case may be. But what has happened in that case is people weren't actually learning. They weren't taking the information in, and they surely were not applying it. So that's one of the big problems that happens is it's people are showing up, but it's not sinking in, and there's a cost to that.
Yeah, and I'm thinking as I was listening to you about the people in there who are asleep, and the organization was involved in a public, um, just a very public legal battle
Yeah,
because of sexual harassment. That is nuts to me.
yeah.
So you would think, obviously, if they've invested a lot of money in it, you would think it would be taken a little bit more seriously. But at the
But
same time, it's kind of up to the organization to emphasize that. And so,
right.
um,
And that's, to your point, like that's where the adult learning element comes in. It's because people have had prior experiences of attending these trainings. And so they have, oh, this is going to be boring. I don't need to pay attention. Oh, I'll sit next to my friends. We can catch up during the workday. Children don't have that experience. They are truly a sponge in all things. And so it's easier to provide them with information and have them consume it. Whereas an adult who is busy, they're frustrated, they have their own lives going on, and getting them and expecting them to come fully ready to consume information, process it, and then apply it.
So I'm thinking about how you say you can customize a learning journey for both the employee and the client. How is that possible? Talk to us about how you do that.
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that the key thing that is not only a core value of mine, but it's a practice, is I actually listen. And someone would think, well, of course you're a consultant, you need to listen to what the client is requesting as well as the end user is requesting. But in order for me to truly customize something that meets the needs of my clients and their end users, I need to listen. So I listen to what the story that they're telling me about their needs as an organization or as a company. What are the outcomes that they are trying to achieve? But I'm also listening to what they're not saying, what they're missing. Are they talking about their values around employees or their corporate values when they're telling me the outcomes that they want? The other part of that conversation that I listen to is, what are they saying about the end user? Are they saying things that, oh, they're unmotivated, they have to be handheld during trainings, they're resistant to change? What language are they using to describe the end user? All of those things matter, because as I'm customizing a training or a learning journey for the client, it needs to meet their outcomes, their projected or promised outcomes. But it also, and more importantly, needs to support the person who's going to use it. So the end user. Is it something that's going to be engaging for them? Is the information organized in a way that helps them actually learn? And then are there elements in there that support their transfer of that knowledge to using what it is that we're training them to do?
Oh, I love that. And so, excuse me, that really speaks volumes, because then no two organizations are really going to have the same sort of training. And we see a lot of times where consultants try to have this one size fits all thing, and they, make a few tweaks here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, it's, I've developed this and this is going to work for you. So try it. And I can maybe change the name of it, or I can change the introduction because we'll add your company's information for the introduction. But it sounds like the way you approach it is really, really unique, because you are customizing something based on what the organization needs, but also what the employees are going to best respond to. So that's really amazing. And in this ever evolving landscape of adult learning, that's kind of what's needed. But as we keep moving forward, we see a lot of trends in AI and just all these different things coming about with training. What are some of the things that you've seen that are shaping how businesses approach employee training?
Yeah, that's a great question. And before I get to that, I want to comment to something. I want to respond to something you mentioned, was that looking at that one size fits all. And, in conversations that are more about my personal life, I often share that I never fit in. In all of my learning environments, I was always the quote unquote odd one out. And from that, I've recognized that one size fits all approach truly does not work. And if it does work, it works to a point, but it's not sustainable. And so that's why I take the approach that I do, because I want to work with companies that as we're working together, they're learning how to do the training on their own. And they're able to, if they need to create a new training, they're able to do it on their own, as opposed to if you use a one size fits all and it stops working, you then have to find another one size fits all. So it's actually not very cost effective. And I love that work of customization and being strategic in that process. But when we think about what are some of the problems or issues that organizations and businesses are challenged with now, as it relates to training their employees or their clients, you mentioned one of them, and definitely AI is, in fact, one of the major drivers in a challenge that people are going to be facing. But it's also, given post COVID with the shutdowns and people working remotely, as we've come out of that, there is this demand by employees, by clients, consumers to learn on their own terms, to work on their own terms, to work at home. And so that actually shapes it. It shapes the learning experience that businesses should focus on, because it's no longer, oh, we're going to have a meeting, a 2-hour meeting, and part of the meeting includes training. Or we can just pull everyone together on a Monday or a Tuesday. It's the beginning of the week. Everyone will be in the office. You can't do that any longer. And so now it becomes an issue of how can we leverage Zoom or the virtual screen and not contribute to the fatigue of it all, but truly support learning and interaction as a part of learning. Because as we all, well, not everyone knows it because not everyone does it, but adults do enjoy learning together. There are instances when we prefer to learn in isolation and focus, but for the most part, learning in community, it goes such a far way for organizations to embed that. And so teaching organizations how to do that virtually is also something that I think they need to move forward with.
Oh, I love that, because, season 2 is all about community. And so teaching organizations how to train in community, how to use the work community environment to lean on each other, to understand whatever the training is, I think is super important, because like you said, people do want to learn on their own terms and sometimes on their own, but sometimes you need that buddy or your team of people to go through the training with, so that it makes more sense. So I love that aspect. What are three things that you would say to help improve adult learning? What are 3 strategies?
Yeah. So the 3 strategies that I share with all of my clients. So yes, I customize, but we have guardrails. And these are the 3 guardrails that I use. I always encourage people to focus and, first, to explore, audit, investigate, research their engagement. How are you engaging people? That is critical, absolutely critical. So the engagement piece, there's so many things that you can do in a training to improve engagement. And I don't mean entertainment. Let's get away from entertaining people, but rather engaging them in their own learning. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the importance of building learning experiences that support comprehension and retention of information. That's absolutely critical. So it's building things logically. And then the last one is, in fact, the application piece. It's so important that we are making sure people are able to apply the thing that you're teaching them. So it's engagement, comprehension and retention, and then application.
That's great. Those are the 3 things that are going to make for a great training, guys. I hope you guys are writing this down, taking some of this away, because it makes a difference. And as an organization, you're expecting your employees, after being trained on something, to have knowledge of the subject. So there is a way to do it, guys. And Dr. Graham is dropping the gems.
It really is there's so many easy ways to do it. There's, when we think about engagement, the first thing that people often want to do is move to the entertainment element. And that is something that has happened that we see out in social media and in trade magazines, is this idea of, oh, hire in, a big personality. Let's do gamification. And it's really, they're focusing on the entertainment element of it all. But the reality is it's entertainment, but there is no link to the content. And that's where the downfall happens. That is where the investments are wasted, because there's no connection in that regard.
And this is what I used to tell my teachers, right? It's like you have this game that you want to play with your kids, right? But how does this game link to the learning?
Yeah.
Where is the link to the learning piece here? Because yes, this is fun. Yes, this is engaging for the kids, but what are they learning from this?
Yeah.
And so when we went backwards and we said, okay, let's start with what we want them to know, and let's go backwards to see how we can build up to that, then it made more sense to them. So this leads me to thinking about the actual what actually happens when businesses don't improve the learning experience.
Yeah. That's, whew. I had to take a pause on that question, Spring, because it truly is, I would say, a dangerous place to be. It's truly, I think it's really dangerous to not invest in effective and efficient training, because, as in the case that I shared with you about this sexual harassment training, where they're spending thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to have people attend, but yet they're still battling litigation and publicly litigation in the court system around sexual harassment cases. So I would say it's a loss of revenue. For one, you're losing money. You are truly losing money when you don't focus on investing in good quality training. And when we think about some smaller businesses, that can be a challenging ask, and it can be a bit scary when when businesses are small and growing, and there's not an extra person there to help with training development or making the large investments. But I argue that there's still ways to do it. And I'm always happy to help individuals. I've got resources on my website that really help with making some decisions on that end. So that's one case. The other is, you have now a frustrated facilitator. So whoever your trainers are, if they are consistently being tasked with facilitating a training, but no one is motivated to be there. They're looking at their group of employees or clients, and they're just like, oh, no one wants to work under those conditions. So now you have some trainers or facilitators who are experiencing high levels of stress. Another issue with that is your outcomes are not being achieved. Hands down. And that is key. When you are putting together a program, requiring people or inviting people to be there, and it's not achieving the goal that you set out, you've wasted time, money, and energy. Those are resources that are really difficult, if at all, able to get back. But one of the things that I am most passionate about, that organizations should be concerned about, is when employees or clients are expected to attend a training, there's a cost. If it's a client, the client has paid for it. If it is an employee, the employee has left their work to attend a training. So their work is still mounting, it's still piling up, it's being left undone. But they are here in this training. The training is ineffective. They're frustrated now because it's not helping them. It's not engaging them. And so you have these two groups of individuals who have the clients and the employees with the same experience. They've invested something, time or money, that they now can't get back. And they are unmotivated because it's not engaging. The information is haphazard, so they're not learning. There are no support systems to help them apply the information. So they leave that training depleted. But this is where my heart hurts. Those individuals go home, they go to their loved ones, they go to their communities, and they are not their full selves because they've been depleted. So who is ultimately impacted? You have children, you have parents, you have loved ones, you have community members because they're not, the individual is not engaging in community. And that's who I do this work for. I do the work for the ones who are left to not get the best of their, whoever the individual is, or if they're having trainings that truly fill them up, they go home and they're a happier, better version of themselves. They're in the community as a better version of themselves. That's the change that I want to make.
I am specifically thinking about when I was working in healthcare, and during this time, everyone was switching over to EMR, to the electronic medical records.
Yep.
So that tells you how long ago it was. But
I'm with you on that one. I remember this.
And so we had like 2 weeks straight worth of trainings on the new system because the new system was massive. It was epic. And that was the name of the system.
Yep, I remember. I do remember.
And I was just like, during the trainings, I just remember being like, are they serious? Are we really supposed to be taking something away from this?
Yeah.
Is this really are we supposed to be taking this training seriously? Because I'm a self-learner. Like I learn better on my own. So give me the material, let me play around with it, let me figure it out on my own. If I have questions, I know how to write an email, I know how to pick up a phone. Right. I know how to get the answers to the questions that I have. Yeah. But there are some people, like you said, who need that person in front of them who's going to walk them through step by step, and that's okay as well. But for me, that wasn't effective. And then we're sitting there 8 hours each day. It was a full work day for 2 full weeks. I was miserable. And so I remember going home. This is when my oldest was, he was little. He was like, he had to be maybe just a year or almost a year at the time. Yeah. And so I just remember going home and not even wanting to be bothered with my baby boy because I was like so frustrated from the training all day. Yeah. And so, when you say it has an effect on the employee, even outside of work, that makes sense because I fully remember that person being me, not wanting to engage at home at all because I was so drained from the training that wasn't effective for me at all. Mm-hmm. So it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. But I'm so thankful that you were able to share all of this with us today, Dr. Graham. And as we wrap up, I just want to jump into what you're doing right now, like in your field. What are you most excited about? Do you have any special research projects that you're working on or any special projects at all?
I do. So one of the big projects that I'm working on, and I'm working on it in the background, I'll say. So it's definitely in the background, is I'm looking at the experience of online businesses and what are their feelings around developing training programs. So a lot of small to mid-sized businesses, coaches, other consultants, and people who want to participate in that. It's on my website. They're definitely able to share their experiences with that, because I want to get a clearer understanding of the stresses and challenges that they're facing. People have shared their experiences with me, but I'd like to expand that data set and looking at that, and so that I'm better equipped to support a larger group of individuals, which I'm really excited about. But for your clients and for your audience, one of the most exciting things that I have is the training assessment. It's truly, truly gem. It really is a gem. It's been in the making. I've been working on it for about 3 years, and it has launched the end of last year. And it is a very simple training assessment. Any organization can use it, no matter how big or how small. And it's 30 questions. It covers 6 different areas to impact training and development. And so there are questions about those 3 areas that I shared with you. So there's questions on engagement, there's questions on content development, and there's questions on application, but there's also questions about your business. Do your business values match? Do they align with the trainings that you have? And there are a couple other things. So there's 6 different focus areas, and I created it to get people thinking. That's the key point is, sometimes you can be so deep in the weeds that you don't realize. And so it provides you a step back to say, oh, wow, this is an area that I need to investigate in our training program. And what are some ways that I can make improvements? And if people can't do it on their own, they're more than happy to follow up with me and go from there.
Oh, that sounds nice. So how do they access this resource? Where would they find this?
Yeah, it's on my website. So Dr. Carrie Graham, that's it, .com. And it's right there on the website. And all you have to do is share your information so that I can follow up with you and make sure that all of your questions are being answered. But it's an easy downloadable. There are detailed instructions on how best to use it and a couple recommendations on how to address the concerns that pop up for you. And this is a case where customization comes in. The questions can fit many different types of businesses, again, because I am focused on you need to create a training that meets your needs and your end user's needs, not someone else's.
Absolutely. So if individuals want to reach out to you, or if organizations want to learn more about the training services that you offer, how do they get in touch with you? Are you on the social media channels? What are your handles?
Yeah, I would say the best way to learn about me is I invite you to visit my website. Visit drcarriegraham.com. There's so much information on there. I've included complimentary resources for people that I encourage you to look at. All the information about my services, and you can schedule a consultation with me there as well. But if you're someone who likes social media, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm in those LinkedIn streets, and I love having conversation there. But if you are someone who isn't so social and you want to learn things on your own, the website's the place to go. I invite you to check it out and schedule a consultation.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Graham. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, Spring, thank you so much for inviting me. And I have to say, the questions that you've asked and that we've had a chance to discuss are so pointed, and they have such depth in getting people to think about what it is that they can do to help improve the businesses that they have and the businesses in which they work. So thank you. I'm truly honored to be here and to share insight with your audience.
Well, thank you. And guys, I hope this was helpful to you as well. If you're running a business or if you're a leader in your organization who is over the training and development of your employees, I hope that this was super helpful to you in thinking about how you're going to develop your next training program or perhaps enhance the one that you've already put together. So if you need help, don't hesitate to reach out to Dr. Graham. Again, her website, Dr. Carrie Graham, that's DrCarrieGraham.com. And there you can learn more about the services that she offers, and you can get directly in touch with her from her website or on LinkedIn. She is Carrie Graham, PhD on LinkedIn. So thanks for tuning in, guys. And until next time on the Spring Forward podcast.